Thanks very much, everybody. My name's Kim Smythe. I'm President and CEO of the Greater Nanaimo Chamber of Commerce, and I'll open by acknowledging we live, work, and play on the traditional territories of the Nanaimo First Nations, and I pay our respect for that. Thank you all for attending this evening. I'm recognizing a lot of faces in the crowd tonight, especially since we've done so many of these events, and it seems that, especially recently, I've been opening up by saying something like, this is one of the most important elections you'll ever vote in Nanaimo. That was certainly true with the recent municipal election, the event center referendum, and the civic by-election going all the way back to July 2017. Think about that. This is the fourth time that we've met to vote in 17 months. It's pretty remarkable, and we are a pretty good town for doing that, I guess, eh? So I'm about to say it again. This is one of the most important elections Nanaimo has ever had, because we're being constantly reminded this time your vote could have historic significance for the rest of the province. The media outside of Nanaimo especially has turned up the heat on the importance of this election, not just to Nanaimo, but to the whole province because of the potential political drama that could follow. But as a citizen of Nanaimo, the most important thing is supporting one of these 6 candidates here who are willing to commit their time, their energy, and their community service to you, the voters of Nanaimo. And whoever wins, it will eat up a good piece of their life for the next few years. As a nonpartisan organization, thank you. As a nonpartisan organization, our job is to help you vote smart by educating you about these 6 candidates, the parties they represent, so that you can vote for whom you think will best serve Nanaimo and let the rest of the province figure the rest of it out. Tonight, our 6 candidates will provide opening statements, then engage in a question and answer moderated debate with Dominic Abassi of Nanaimo News Now, and then each candidate will offer closing statements. Our timekeepers tonight are David Hatchman and Sebastian Barkovic. Thanks for volunteering, both of you guys. Thank you for the rest of our volunteers tonight. And Mr. Hatchman, would you come over and explain the timing to the audience? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kim. It's always a pleasure working with you and the Chamber. I enjoy it very much. But enough about me. Let's talk about the clock. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to do their opening remarks. I will have 30 seconds to back away from you. All hear me? Okay. All candidates will have 45 seconds to answer the questions put to them, 30 seconds for any rebuttals they may have, and 1 minute for their closing remarks. In all instances, we will warn when they have 15 seconds left in their allotted time with an orange flag. When the candidate's time is up, they will see a red flag. If they are still talking after the flag, they've clearly missed their visual cue, and we would like you to make it interactive and provide them with an audio cue so we can move forward to the next part of the debate. That's it. Kim? Thank you.
Thank you for leaving my notes there, David. Appreciate that a lot. Questions for the Q&A period were submitted to the Chamber in advance and were also being accepted by our scrutineer, Merv Unger, down here. On hand this evening, Merv is with NanaimoNet.com, a longtime journalist in our community and now providing a local alternate online news source. If you have a question and you haven't put it into the big bin outside, one of our runners in the room will make sure you have paper and pen and turn that question over to you. So if you've got a question, raise your hand. We have volunteers from Vancouver Island Real Estate Board who will come over to you, bring you a piece of note paper and a pen, and you can get the question in, and that will be brought to the front, and we will vet that and get it up to the candidates. So we have quite a large room in here tonight, a little bit larger than we were expecting, actually. It shows that everybody is incredibly interested in this this election and this campaign. We are live streaming as well to viewers at home. Allen Felker of VIT is here again tonight to perform that service. And if you're wishing to let anybody at home know how to watch this via live streaming, log on to the Chamber of Commerce Facebook page, and instructions are right there at the top of the page. I'd like to also thank Vancouver Island Real Estate, or Vancouver Island University, for helping out with the cost for this evening by sponsoring the event, along with Vancouver Island Real Estate Board and our media sponsors, Nanaimo News Bulletin and NanaimoNet.com. So now please help me in welcoming our moderator, Mr. Dominic Abassi.
Thank you. Hopefully I have better mic luck than the previous two gentlemen here. First of all, I just want to say thank you so much to each and every one of you and all of our candidates for being here this evening. Obviously, we've been told many times how critical this election is to the future of BC and the current situation in the legislature. So it's an important time for us to be engaged and get to know what the candidates think about the important issues here locally. Again, my name is Dominic Abassi of NanaimonewsNow.com. We've briefed the candidates already on how things are going to play out, and you've been made aware as well. We will have 2-minute opening statements. We'll head down the stage alphabetically. The closing statements will go the other way. We will ask questions both to the group and to the individual candidates. The candidates do have an opportunity for a rebuttal if they would like to answer back to something that one of the other candidates said. I will stress to the candidates that for your rebuttals, please stay on the topic of the question or the answer that was given by the other candidate, and I will move along if people are getting off topic with their rebuttals in that way. So we'll get right into it. We will start with our 2-minute intros per candidate. We will start to my right over here with Mr. Justin Greenwood of the BC Conservatives.
Thank you very much for the board and sponsors for putting this on. And I'd also like to thank you for inviting me and all the candidates here. As the debate earlier on Monday, myself and 2 others were not invited. So I'd like to be thankful for that, because I, for one, am for democracy, as well as most of you are as well. Thank you for that. As a BC Conservative representative, I think this is a great time and an opportunity for everyone to take a look at what's going on with the BC legislature and what could be offered. And what we offer is a fresh start for Nanaimo and a fresh start for BC. Things that we're standing on: scrapping the carbon tax, reforming ICBC, which is much needed, looking at scrapping the employment health tax, and getting rid of the speculation tax. If we can look at, as we go into more of that, I'm sure those questions are going to be coming up, and we'll be able to expand further on that. And I appreciate everyone else, all of you, for coming out and see what all the other candidates have to offer. And I'm looking forward to hear from the other candidates as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Greenwood. We'll now move on to Mr. Tony Harris of the BC Liberals.
Good evening. I'm delighted to join you on the traditional territory of the Nanaimo First Nation. My name is Tony Harris, and I'm the BC Liberal candidate in the upcoming by-election. I'm excited to be here tonight to talk about our great city and about ideas that can make it an even greater place to live, work, and play. I've spent this entire campaign talking about numerous issues that our community is facing and promoting aspirational and big ideas that I believe will make a positive impact on the lives of hardworking Nanaimo families. I'm a 6th-generation Nanaimoite. My kids are 7th, and I've always wanted to live here. I just love this city. I've spent my entire adult life working hard to make a difference here. Whether it's in the various charities I've championed or the work with the Hospital Foundation, a hospital I was born in, my 2 kids were born in, and where my wife Leslie and I will welcome our next child into the world soon. And when this by-election is behind us, win or lose, I can assure everybody in Nanaimo that I will continue to fight for our city, for ideas that will improve it. Now, there's been an awful lot of talk this by-election about politics, and this by-election, what it means at the provincial level. But the fact is, nobody really knows, and that's not what this should be about. This by-election is about us. It's about Nanaimo. It's Nanaimo's time. And tonight, I hope we can have a discussion about our city, about us, and about the issues we face and the ideas that make our city even better. At the beginning of this campaign, I pledged to talk honestly and openly to voters. I promised to bring forward ideas, answer questions honestly and directly, and ensure people know where I stand. I've done this. I've issued the Priorities for Nanaimo document publicly for all voters to review and consider. I've been upfront with voters about my vision for our incredible city. I've also told voters I believe politics should be inclusive, not divisive. It doesn't work. It doesn't get more people engaged, especially younger voters. So I promise to run a respectful campaign, criticize ideas, not people. After all, at the end of the day, we're on the same team, Team Nanaimo.
Thank you. Now Ms. Sheila Malcolmson from the BC NDP.
I'm grateful to be on Nanaimo territory, thankful to my fellow candidates, to our hosts, and everybody who's come out for this most important election of our lives. The stakes are high, and the choice is clear. We can keep building forward with John Horgan and the NDP, or we can go back to the BC Liberals and their record of cutting services and harming people in our community. And let's be clear, the Liberals do have a record. Deep cuts to people's services, doubling MSP and ferry fares, and a money laundering scandal that fueled the housing crisis and the overdose crisis. But we are turning a corner with Leonard as our mayor, with John as our premier. We have governments that are working together for people, not just the wealthy and the well-connected. And we're seeing results here. New ICU at Nanaimo Hospital, more teachers, more paramedics, building affordable housing, and seniors care. The other day I heard from Christine, a woman who told me that she has been afraid to ask her caregiver to give her a shower. That's because of BC Liberal cuts. And I'm so proud that we are building back care hours.
Thank you. Thank you.
Building back care hours are going to make a real difference in her life. In just 18 months, we have achieved so much. The largest middle-class tax cut in BC's history by eliminating MSP premiums. The best jobs record in the country, and we've launched Clean BC, a North America leading program to reduce emissions and for climate change and to build the jobs of the future. There is more to do. I love serving this community. I've been...
I'd just like to remind the crowd, please, to keep your comments and your cheering or jeering during responses to a minimum. Please have respect for the candidates and for the others in attendance and those watching online, please. Thank you. We'll now go from the BC Green Party, Michele Ney.
I too would like to thank, I too would like to acknowledge that we're on the territory of the Nanaimo people. We have much to be thankful for. VITVca. I'd also like to thank each and every one of you for attending this evening and being informed and making a well-informed decision for this voting, this very important election to come up. I was born and raised with deep roots here in Nanaimo, and I've been an educator for 32 years in public service. And over that time period, I've acquired the ability to be a good listener, hearing the issues and concerns of my students and my parents. I have worked collaboratively on committees and task force addressing problems and arriving and implementing solutions for the betterment of my school communities that I've worked in. I believe in the notion that anything is possible when people are supported and empowered. Nanaimo has been neglected for decades. We have a housing crisis, transportation is lagged, and we have medical care is desperately needed here. In this election is an incredibly important opportunity for Nanaimo to finally, absolutely finally get our voice heard here. And I can provide a true voice, a strong voice, with stability and accountability. I didn't know I was that strong, sorry. Now what happens with my time? Anyways, I have a clean vision. I have a vision with a clean economy here in Nanaimo, investing in education, science, innovation, and technology. I would like to see a home for each and every member of our community and have 21st century transportation solutions. And that's exactly what we can have here and be leaders in a clean economy, a place that we not only love, but a place that we're proud of. We have incredible potential here. Let's lead in this change towards a 21st century paradigm together. I'd like to be that leader for change. that MLA for you. Thank you.
Next up, from the VanIsle Province Party, Robin Richardson.
Our VanIsle Province Party is dedicated to the proposition that we would be at least 100 times better off as a province than as a neglected, often neglected fringe region of British Columbia and Canada. Basically, when you look at it, all the money that comes to BC from Ottawa for everything, for transfers, health, education, departments, the departments are all located in Vancouver, Crown corporations. Vancouver Island gets less than 1%, no, pardon me, less than 2% of that money, yet we have 17% of the population. We are shortchanged. And if you look at last year's election, I looked at all the other parties, their promises for 3 years of infrastructure, transit, and capital spending on colleges and universities, bricks and mortar. When you break it out, Vancouver Island got less than 1%. We are shortchanged by the parties in British Columbia, and we need to have our own independent province. And I'm telling you that we could be at least 100 times better off in every area if we have that. The money would come here from Ottawa, to the island, not to the BC government, but to the Vancouver Island government. Also, we would start off as a province debt-free. That's happened every time the province, including BC, came into Confederation. We would balance the budget over the business cycle, some years deficit, some years surplus. I am an economist, former member of parliament. We would have lower taxes, both for business and so we'd be very, very competitive. And so there's just so many things. Go to our website. I do urge you to vote for me because we can make a difference. Thank you.
Next up, Bill Walker of the BC Libertarian Party.
Hi, I'm a local businessman. I've lived in Nanaimo for 25 years, and I love living in Nanaimo. It's a great community. It's a clean community. It doesn't get much better, really, than living here on the island. Are you tired of successive governments that seem to do nothing but invent ways to control your life, tell you what you can and can't do, what you can and can't say, even what you can and can't think? Are you tired of government taking a larger and larger cut of your hard-earned money without offering even a satisfactory level of service in exchange? Are you tired of government-controlled insurance, utilities, transportation, distribution monopolies, and all the other ways that bureaucracy suppresses competition and increases cost of living? The BC Libertarian Party has a platform underpinned by the core principles of individual liberty, freedom, self-expression, and peace. Although you may not have heard of libertarians, these are values that have made this country one of the most stable and respected places in the world. These values were instilled early in our country's development. Unfortunately, these principles have been gradually eroded over the last several decades because as a society, we have been convinced by our political leadership and bureaucrats that they know better how to manage our finances, protect our resources, and even raise our children. A libertarian government in BC will take everyday decision-making authority away from politicians and bureaucrats and return it to where it belongs, the citizens of Nanaimo and the citizens of this great province. Thank you.
We'll now move into the question portion of our evening, and we will again begin moving from my right to left for the group questions as far as taking turns to answer the questions. We will begin with Mr. Tony Harris for this round, and we'll move down the line. This is a group question addressed to all candidates under the theme of homelessness. The discontent city in downtown Nanaimo came to a very hasty end in early December, and 2 supportive housing units were set up to take in about 170 people from that previous homeless encampment. The province, the city have all said that this is a temporary and quick, if not hasty, solution to the problem to put an end to discontent city. But there are still yet to be permanent solutions put in place. What made in Nanaimo solutions to homelessness and specifically to housing this large bulk of people will you lobby for if given a chance to be in government? And we'll start with Mr. Harris of the BC Liberals.
Thanks. I think this is an important issue for everybody in Nanaimo, and although we've had supportive housing come to Nanaimo over the last decade, we obviously need more. And what we need is local solutions, as you've asked for. We need to lobby with our civic government to challenge for the proper locations in our city to be zoned for supportive housing, and then we need to work with BC Housing and the provincial government to implement those programs. But it's really important to consult with the people of our community, because I believe that people in our community felt like they were run roughshod on, and that wasn't right how it was handled. So it's a delicate matter, but I will work collaboratively with all levels of government to ensure that we have a solution that works for everybody.
Ms. Malcolmson?
Now, the homelessness crisis was 16 years in the making, and the repair job to move Tent City to modular housing was done on an emergency basis, but I really regret that it has had impacts on the neighboring communities and really wearing out the frontline groups that have been asked to take the burden. We've got a new council that's going to make some of those zoning choices, but in the meantime, our commitment as the NDP is to build 121 new affordable housing developments in the city. Those are already all zoned, and they're with community organizations. And we need to be talking right now, and as I have been with the housing minister, about how we can take the pressure off those modular housing sites right now, maybe split them up, get more wraparound services to take the pressure off neighbors.
Yep. Ms. Ney?
So what we need to do is look at the root of the problem. Obviously, we need more housing for these people on the streets. There's still 200 people that are still out on the streets and in the bushes living. And what we need to do is look at the root of the problem. We've had 16 years of cuts in education and healthcare, and those children who have deep-rooted social, emotional, physical issues and traumas have been not addressed and supported as they move through the education system. And what we need to do is reinstate those funds to support those people so that they can be contributing members of our community and workforce.
Mr. Richardson?
We're advocating, if I'm your MLA, I'll demand in the budget in February that we have a guaranteed annual income here as a pilot project in Nanaimo. Guaranteed annual income set at $1,800 per month would end poverty for seniors and children and others, but it also provide an incentive for builders to build affordable housing. Right now, if people are just getting $600 or so, or $700 on social assistance, there's no incentive for builders to build housing. So this will give the incentive, and I think that it's something that we could do.
Yep. Mr. Walker?
So the discontent tent city is turned into the terminal ghetto. I rather suspect that place is going to be there for a long time. It's causing a lot of problems for the neighbors there. This homeless issue goes a lot further back than 16 years. It goes probably back 50 years, and it's because of the roadblocks put up against developers and builders building rental housing. So we need to get rid of those roadblocks, build some more rental housing right away, and get some more housing for everyone.
Yep. Mr. Greenwood?
I've heard steps about putting in all these buildings. I've heard steps about programs, but what kind of programs? Unless these programs are directed at self-reliance, nothing is going to work. You can put these buildings up and put them in there and help people along there. Housing affordability is only part of the problem. Part of the problem of homelessness is the self-reliance program that are needed. Yes, there are some people out there who have disabilities, and yes, they should be taken care of. We take care of our own. But a lot of these other people can be taught to be self-reliant. There are self-reliant programs out there already. And if we can work with those companies and work with the local civic government, the flag distracts me, sorry. We'll be a lot better off, and we'll be able to actually help people along with that.
Move on to our next question. Again, this is a group question addressed to the full group. and we'll run down the line. We'll begin with Ms. Malcolmson. A lot of people, when the Labio and terminal housing sites were installed, felt as though they were not consulted and that the government came in, chose the sites before anyone had a chance to comment on them, that the projects were already happening. It was too late. Speak to some specific steps that you would take to make neighbors feel more comfortable about accepting these supportive housing units into their communities and into their neighborhoods.
Because the housing crisis hit Nanaimo so hard because of real estate speculation unchecked and lack of investment in affordable housing, we've had a crisis across BC, and it's hit Nanaimo this summer particularly. When the $7 million that was offered to City Council was turned down, that's what created the discontent city. And then the court order turned it into such an emergency that the action had to happen fast. And you're right, there was no consultation. The province, in the absence of a City Council direction, imposed on the neighborhoods. We should never have an emergency like that. If we're looking after our people, then we will never be in a crisis like that.
Ms. Ney.
As we move forward, what we need to have is consultation with the stakeholders and the residents. And the second thing that we need to do is ensure that they are properly monitored as they transition through their addictions and mental health issues that they have. And the third thing that we need to do is make sure that we have adequate supports in place 24 hours a day. And the number one thing that we should be looking at is safety for these people as well as the residents around in the surrounding area.
Mr. Richardson.
Okay. The VanIsle Province Party is a populist party, a positive populist party, and we believe in supporting the people of the community. So more power to the neighborhood associations. We have many neighborhood associations in Nanaimo, and we would encourage them, we would listen to them, and we would respond. Now, as an MLA, I would do whatever I can to get the funding for these houses, but we have to respect the neighbors and their concerns.
Thank you. Mr. Walker?
Yeah, there was no consultation with the neighbors, even the city. There was no approvals or anything. I can tell you that the people of that neighborhood feel that there's a serious abuse of power here. There was no due process. There's property crimes have escalated in that area massively. People are real worried about their property values. There's drug dealing going on there. It really is a disaster for that neighborhood, and I don't think you're going to be able to make them happy, no matter what you do. So just, there's some hard decisions that are going to have to be made there, but the wrong decision was made in the first place.
Mr. Greenwood?
Transparency seems to be a big problem lately. Transparency equals accountability. When you're spending $2 million on a lot and then $1.6 million to put the modular houses on it, you should be letting people know what's going on in the neighborhood, especially when you don't have anything to do for fixing the actual issue, which is self-reliance.
Mr. Harris?
I've spent a lot of time speaking with people in the Newcastle neighborhood and people in the Labio neighborhood, businesses, stakeholders, families that take their kids to Bevan Park. And I think everybody, what I get a sense of is that they're empathetic, but they want some direction. They want strength in policing. They want to know that they can feel safe in their neighborhoods. And what I've promised to these people is that I'd like to work with them on an action plan to deliver the solutions that they feel will make their neighborhood safe. With respect to Bevan Park, I think we need more sweeps. With needles, we need to demonstrate to the community what's happening so that people do feel safer taking their kids to the park and walking through those parks at night.
Our next question is for Mr. Harris of the BC Liberals. And again, any other candidate that wishes to use a rebuttal chit is more than welcome to do so. Regarding the MSP, and the NDP has said that they've eliminated the MSP, although some of that cost burden has been transferred onto municipal governments as well as businesses. And we've seen with the city of Nanaimo that 1% of this year's 5% municipal tax increase is related to the new employer health tax. What can be done to spread the MSP costs out more fairly and evenly to most people like it's done in other provinces?
Well, I've said that I'd like to see the MSP phased out, but I think that that needs to take place over time because it can't just happen overnight. The employer health tax is being downloaded onto not just business, but our universities, our school district, our hospitals, public service in our communities. So it ultimately trickles down to everybody. So I think that the solution is just ultimately ending up on the hardworking families in Nanaimo anyways. And even worse, the province is double dipping this year, and I think that that's just not right. So it needs to be repealed and addressed through strong economics and diversifying the tax base.
Ms. Malcolmson, 30 seconds.
So the BC Liberals, the team that Tony picked, had 16 years to deal with MSP. In fact, they doubled it. And so that we are repealing it entirely is the biggest middle-class tax cut that BC has ever experienced. And were the Liberals to resume power, then they say that they would return the MSP to people.
Ms. Ney wishes to rebut as well, 30 seconds.
First of all, I'd just like to say that I am delighted and supportive of the low and fixed income people having this opportunity to have this service provided. However, as a Green, what we would like to see is a more progressive model that is based on income and reduce to a small degree the amount that is deducted for businesses and employers. Thank you.
Mr. Greenwood wishes to speak to that as well, 30 seconds.
I'd like to address the NDP's comment. They did not get rid of the MSP. They just changed it, a different name. They put it on to companies. They put it on to cities. And they're being double dipped this year in the terms of millions of dollars. This was the wrong direction and the wrong focus for fixing the MSP.
Mr. Walker would also like to talk 30 seconds.
Yeah, if the MSP is the biggest tax cut that they've ever done, it's pretty half-assed.
This question is for Michele Ney. The Green Party has said that the NDP can wear the speculation tax and that they do not support the tax in the way it was done. What do you and your party propose to create more affordability in housing, specifically in Nanaimo?
To provide the supports that we need in housing, for one thing, we need to ban foreign and capital. That's one thing. A second thing I'd like to see is closing the Bear Trust loophole, which would be holding another way of reducing the housing prices from increasing, and the government also providing rental availability for the middle income and continue to provide the housing for the low marginal people that are on the streets at this time.
This question is for Mr. Richardson. One of the main questions when the concept of a Vancouver Island as its own province comes up is economic stability and independence. Please speak to how Vancouver Island's economy can survive on its own as its own province.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, we'll start out debt-free and lower taxes, but we have a very, very strong proposal. We have lots and lots of opportunity for job growth in all sectors. So, of course, I agree with the green, clean technologies, but others as well. And Nanaimo's got tremendous potential, and it's not being realized. So I think that we could do that. We would have, I'd say, incentives for students at the university to stay here and pursue their careers, and free tuition as well.
Yep. This question is for Ms. Malcolmson surrounding the speculation tax. The NDP's speculation tax, in the view of some as it was being implemented, was that it placed Nanaimo at a disadvantage because other municipalities directly around the city were exempted. Parksville, Qualicum were included initially and then removed. Lanceville is, but Ladysmith isn't, Duncan isn't. What would you say to those who say it does create a disadvantage for Nanaimo being targeted by that tax specifically?
The housing crisis has hit Nanaimo families so hard, the impossibility of finding rentals. I hear about it every day. And so I'm not going to turn my back on Nanaimo families who say they cannot find a home. It's one of many tools that we're trying in the absence of action and leadership on this over 16 years. I'm not going to leave Nanaimo families to deal with real estate speculation on their own.
Mr. Richardson, I would like to speak to that. 30 seconds.
I'm sorry. The speculation tax is poorly designed. There ought to be firing some people in Victoria who are consultants to the province. Vancouver Island Party would, if I'm your MLA, we'd get rid of it in the budget. And it's just something that needs to be in the regional district of Nanaimo, so it includes Lanceville as well as Nanaimo. Get rid of it.
Mr. Walker wishes to rebut that, and then Mr. Greenwood, and then Ms. Ney.
Right. The speculation tax, negative option billing. You're guilty until you prove yourself innocent. It's invasive, it's oppressive, and it's authoritarian. And, you know, really, if I want to leave my house vacant, that's my business. It's not the government's business.
Mr. Greenwood?
I've heard time and time from the NDP that the reason for the speculation tax on Nanaimo is to help renters. That's not going to help renters. Have they even actually spoken to renters? When they go and go into a house, they don't get the, hey, I get to pay how much? Those rental costs are based off of what's being charged right now. So if there's going to be more rentals coming along, they're just going to charge the same amount, which is actually really high in Nanaimo. Speculation tax is short-sighted, and as well as like their explanation for it to make more rentals and force people to rent out their homes is ridiculous.
Ms. Ney?
Its delivery is clumsy and it's impacting all British Columbians. And to tell you the truth, I don't even think it's really addressing the speculation in terms of the prices rising rather. And what I'd like to see is this tax being passed over to the municipalities for them to distribute as and collect the levies and create the exemptions that they see fit, and then decide how they want the revenues invested in housing in their communities. Thank you.
This question is for Mr. Harris. This one comes to us from the gallery. Mr. Harris, does your party intend to scrap the speculation tax? And if so, what other measures would be undertaken to try and improve affordability of housing?
I've been crystal clear on the speculation tax. It's not going to solve the intended problem, which is to make housing more affordable. Making housing more affordable relies on creating more supply of housing. The way we do that is to cut red tape at the civic level, to speed up building permits, and make it easier to get the houses built that we need. When we're growing at 7% in population every year, what we need is more housing to ease the burden on the demand of the current supply, which is currently causing this 1% vacancy rate and the affordability to be out of reach for most people. And we owe it to people to get to work on building more supply now.
Mr. Greenwood wishes to speak to that. 30 seconds.
I would agree that it's also about supply. I would agree with not being the speculation tax as well. However, there are some other things that need to be addressed, such as the money laundering that was happening in BC casinos and the real estate over in Vancouver. That caused a lot of this. There was a blind eye to that, and that was not good. That's what caused a lot of this.
Thank you.
Sorry, obviously there's a lot of flags going on. What am I doing?
Yeah,
Okay.
take another 10 seconds, please.
Along with that supply needs to be a target of what kind of supply is going on. You can't, like, if you could put a target over in like West Vancouver, that's not going to help housing affordability. You know where the development's going to go, and from purpose built. There's Just weird to me. Thank you. Thanks.
Please refrain from yelling out or speaking while the candidates are speaking, please. Thank you.
How am I not on subject?
Thank you, sir. This question is for the group, and we will begin with Ms. Ney. A lot of citizens of Nanaimo are feeling very victimized by crime. Petty property crime appears and has the feeling of being very rampant, especially in many areas of this city. The sentences are lenient. Many of the crimes are being committed by the same people over and over again. The issue has been brought to the council table the last 2 weeks, and the message appears to be talk to the province. This is a provincial issue. So we'll start with Ms. Ney, again, a group question. Please speak to specific steps to address what appears to be a significant issue with property crime and Nanaimo citizens feeling victimized by crime.
Okay, the first thing I would like to invite us to consider is a basic income program that provides a basic income for each and every one of us in our communities. Especially as we go forward, we'll be transitioning into a number of careers as we move forward. The second thing, as I've said before, many of these people that are in crime right now are because they have drug and mental health issues. And again, I will reiterate that if we invest in education and mental health and addiction issues and help them resolve these issues and transition through, they could very well be contributing healthy members in our society. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Richardson?
Yes, to get back to the guaranteed annual income, I studied this program since I was at Harvard University back in the late 60s. It's studying economics, and one of the results in guaranteed annual income or minimum income, as Michele said, is a reduction in crime. So if you give people basic $1,800 a month, for example, then there's a reduction in crime, and that's one of the many results, and that's proven. So that's something that I would go for if I was your MLA in the budget. The NDP is going to bring in a guaranteed annual income. I just want Nanaimo to be the pilot project on the island.
Yep. Mr. Walker?
Yeah, petty crime's on the rise in certain specific areas. There's lots of Nanaimo that's safe and pretty much free from that. Again, you're looking at a situation where you ghettoize a bunch of drug-addicted people in one spot, you're going to have problems, and that's a direct reflection in that area, the Newcastle area, of the staggering increase in property crimes around there. And, quite frankly, giving them more money is not going to do it, because when you're drug addicted, you're spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars every month, and you got to steal.
Mr. Greenwood?
Well, I'm just going off of the question. I'm not sure if the city actually said that or not, but I don't know why the city's saying it's on the province. Clearly, the city's the one that pays for the RCMP and contracts them. However, sitting down with the city, sitting down with the RCMP, finding out what's going on, what can be done, is there something the province can do, and also having the federal government there as well. Is there something that we can handle with that? I think that's where that needs to start.
Mr. Harris?
It's a very complex issue, and we need more policing, and I'm pleased with council's decision to hire 15 more police officers for our neighborhoods to provide the support that we need in our communities, but also we need to reach out to people and identify people with mental wellness problems and addiction problems and provide them with the programs that they need. We can't be leaving people behind, and obviously when people are feeling like they have to do something, they'll resort to any measure. So we need to have a strong police presence, but we also need to be empathetic to the situation and reach out and help these people.
Ms. Malcolmson?
So the addiction, homelessness, opioid crisis, all these things have hit Nanaimo hard. The whole province, this has been neglected on the frontline social services, and in just 18 months, the new government has really tried to, with establishment of an addictions and mental health ministry, trying to get at the root of crime. In the meantime, though, we do not want families to feel unsafe in their neighborhoods. We don't want frontline workers to be burned out. And so we're trying to make up for a lot of lost time from bad choices in the previous government, but there's a lot more to do.
This is another. We have lots of questions from the gallery. Yeah. This is a question from the gallery. It is directed to Ms. Ney. Oh, sorry. Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Harris wishes to rebut. My apologies, Tony.
You know, this is the same thing that happened Monday night, and it's sort of the same rhetoric that's been going on all along. I've promised a positive campaign, and Sheila continues to attack with negativity the record of the BC Liberals. Meanwhile,
Thank you very much.
Meanwhile, her party likes to tout the job creation and the economic strength of the province. And I got to tell you, you can't build a strong economy in 18 months. So this is what happened over the last 16 years.
Question from the gallery. This is for Ms. Ney. Where does your party stand on Site C, LNG, and fracking in British Columbia?
That is such a good question. So if you did your research and you looked at the enormous costs that are put into the Site C and the LNG, your mouth would drop. What I'm inviting us to consider is to not invest in any new fossil fuel investments and use those funds that we're using and transition into a clean energy industry where we can create far more jobs, generate far more revenue for our economy, and reduce our carbon footprint here in British Columbia, which is the responsible thing that we need to do for our next generation, or our children's generation, rather.
So another question from the gallery. This one addressed to all of the candidates. And we will begin with Mr. Richardson and work our way down to Mr. Walker and then back to the other end. How do each of the candidates plan on actively serving our community, keeping in touch with the citizens and taxpayers? I'm asking this as I've emailed each one of you and not heard a single response. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, as with any MLA, I'd have an office and a staff to help. I'd be here. We do own a house in Victoria, but we own property here up in Westwood Lake. We've been there for 7 years, so I would, be spending a lot of time as your MLA here in Nanaimo. And I'm open to anybody coming and talking to me. And right now, open to new ideas with a new party and your support. So I need your support to do this, but I would be very open to everyone.
Walker?
I usually return my emails. Anyway, yeah, if elected, I'm sure that the government would provide me with the necessary resources to hire people that would be in a position to respond actively to all of your concerns. And furthermore, I live in Nanaimo, so I would be here and available for your consultation.
Mr. Greenwood?
I too answer emails, so I apologize if I didn't see one. I apologize to whoever sent that. Serving the community would be part of the MLA job. When you're sitting in the house, that's where you're sitting. When you're not, you're in the town, and the office is open to anybody who wants to come in and talk, and to be out there in the community and find out what's going on and hear the concerns, or maybe meet and get a good handshake and get a pat on the back if you've done something well. But most likely, I'll probably be hearing a lot of concerns. So that'll be there for anyone who wants to come and talk.
Mr. Harris?
I probably take a very similar approach to the one that I've taken during this campaign, where for the last 3 months I've worked every single day in the community, meeting people here, listening to their issues and their concerns and areas of opportunity for our community, responding to them and working proactively, collaboratively with them to serve you, which is what my job would be. And I would come up with more ideas, like the one for a tertiary hospital where we have cancer care and where we can give people stents in their hearts so they don't need to go to Victoria or St. Paul's for these things. I would offer ideas like improving our university or bringing an improved port where we can bring more good-paying jobs to our community and solve the issues that are really happening in Nanaimo on the ground today.
you. Ms. Malcolmson?
All of our strength in representation all comes from the advice we get from community organizations and from community members, and that's been the whole way that I've operated in the time that I was Islands Trust Council Chair and the last 3 years as Member of Parliament. I've been proud to talk about community successes, to talk about the innovations that come out of Vancouver Island University, out of island businesses, out of Nanaimo companies that are reducing greenhouse gas emissions and creating jobs while doing it. That's absolutely what informs everything I do. And I've been honored to bring your voices into Parliament, and I would be honored to carry them into the legislature.
Thank you. Ms. Ney?
I am running to represent Nanaimo as your MLA, not to be a politician. That is not who I am. I care deeply about this community. I care deeply about the people, and I care deeply about the environment that surrounds our beautiful city. And as an educator, I have an incredibly strong listening ability to hear the constituents. And what I am inviting you to vote me to be is your voice. And what I need is to hear your issues and your concerns so that I can do my job well. Thank you.
Thank you. This question is from the gallery, and it is for Mr. Greenwood. A week ago, the Nanaimo Ladysmith Federal Conservatives issued a statement stating that the BC Conservatives only had the potential to split the vote and that Tony Harris was the candidate to support to defeat the NDP. How do you feel about that statement, and what is your answer to that?
That was the Nanaimo Ladysmith Conservative EDA?
The Federal Conservatives.
The Federal Conservative. As far as I know, the Conservative Party of Canada have already spoken with that president. He's already been reprimanded, and he retracted the statement on their Facebook page. Obviously, he's a BC Liberal supporter, and as he said in his retraction, that he spoke for his own and not of the party. And that's just part of the game of what we're doing right now. I don't know what else you want to speak to on that.
Mr. Harris, 30 seconds.
With all due respect, I think that the support that I'm receiving from the community is because I will be a strong representative for Nanaimo in Victoria. And I'd like to acknowledge also that Mr. Greenwood's actually from Vancouver. He lives in Vancouver, and people want a representative from Nanaimo for Nanaimo to work on Nanaimo's needs, and I'm a strong voice, and I will represent you to do that.
I'll allow Mr. Greenwood to rebut to that.
I guess Mr. Harris's stance on not getting personal is out the window. I'm actually currently living in Langley, but I'm from the island. I was born in Victoria, but lived on the Saanich Peninsula. My family's here in Nanaimo. I'm staying at my brother's house, 5 minutes down the road. I've already made it publicly clear in any article I've had that I'll move to Nanaimo if elected. And that, if you have a problem with that, then obviously that's an elitist issue you have. Then that's one we have going on in Victoria right now, this whole elitism and entitlement.
Thank you. It's a question from the gallery addressed to Ms. Malcolmson. On what issues do you believe you can work together with the BC Liberals? Are there any specific areas where your ideological agendas converge?
That is quite a question. I've been able to reach across the aisle in a lot of areas of my work, working with labor and environmental groups and business to get work done. I haven't identified any pieces of commonality, but my work with First Nations, bringing people together, is something I've been proud of. So. Don't take my lack of affinity with the BC Liberal platform, which I strongly believe has damaged our community, as a lack of indication to work well with almost all others.
Hey, Dom.
Mr. Harris, 30 seconds.
I, on the other hand, find it quite simple to find commonality. When I announced my campaign, I urged for a new intensive care unit in Nanaimo, which I'd been lobbying for with my work on the Hospital Foundation for over a year, and we had crickets. 2 weeks later, it was funded. Moreover, on Monday, I met with Sheila and Michele in the Nanaimo School District, where we talked about championing the idea for more rooms at Hammond Bay Elementary, where I went to school, and poof, today it was funded.
Thank you. I'll allow Ms. Malcolmson to speak to that. 30 seconds.
By-elections do not change policies like that. It's new governments that change policies.
Thank you.
The Hammond Bay School has been in the works. That expansion has been in the works for 15 years. I guess you hadn't heard from the parents that they've been working that hard on it. And the BC NDP has been working on it since March. That's when the school district developed their plan. Same with the ICU. Your party had the opportunity to fix it in 2013 and refused to.
This question is for all candidates, and we'll begin with Mr. Walker and work our way back down. Nanaimo is and has been for years facing a doctor shortage. Recently, a very popular walk-in clinic at Nanaimo North Town Center closed due to the high cost of running that clinic was the reason given. Many in the city are finding it very difficult to find a family doctor to take them on. Please speak to specific initiatives and steps that can be undertaken to create more availability of family doctors for people in Nanaimo.
Sure. One of the things that we've been considering is the need for more private clinics in our communities. This doctor shortage has been going on for many years. It's all across the province. There's some areas that have very few doctors. What we like to do is encourage private clinics, and which would reduce the waiting lists in the public system. And you know, if people want to pay for their health care, then they should have the freedom to do so. Freedom of choice, people. Freedom of choice.
Thank you. Mr. Greenwood?
The shortage of doctors isn't just a provincial issue; it's a federal issue, and a lot of that happened with when the Trudeau Liberals changed a lot of the rules around incorporating, and a lot of doctors, you know, are incorporated. So when a lot of things change with that, with like how they make their money and have to pay for all that, they're going to leave. So we can work on, as well as Mr. Walker said, we want a mixture of some private clinics as well that give them the incentive of staying around and wanting to work for the community.
Mr. Harris?
Along with my call for a tertiary hospital here in Nanaimo, I've also challenged Dr. Ralph Nilsson to think about an aspirational view towards applied nursing and ultimately training more doctors right here in Nanaimo, who would stay here right here in Nanaimo. But also, we need to be thinking about, why can't we book our appointments online? Why can't we do prescription renewals online? Why can't we take the burden off of our general practitioners so that they can work on the people who need the care face-to-face? Why can't we do things remotely with FaceTime? There's got to be advances to our medical system, and we need to be thinking aspirationally towards the future to be more efficient and creative.
Ms. Malcolmson?
People having access to a family doctor is vital for public health, and it's been just so discouraging that we haven't been able, as a country and as a province, to be able to do that. The team that Tony chose promised that they would get a family doctor for everyone. They abandoned that program 3 years later, and people were even worse off. Even more people were without doctors. I'm so proud that we've been able, just a couple of weeks ago, to announce opening by the end of March an urgent primary care center. That's going to provide people access to doctors, nurse practitioners, mental health workers, and give them that wraparound service that takes the pressure off emergency rooms and gets them access to regular, friendly care.
Ms. Ney?
Well, we have big concern here in British Columbia because we are getting more seniors moving out to British Columbia as they are discovering we live in the most beautiful part of our country. The other concern I have is that there's approximately 20% of the people in our community that don't have a doctor, which is incredibly surprising. I'd like to invite us to consider a community care model where we distribute many of the services that a doctor would provide into the other healthcare services that we have in the community, so the doctors can do what they only can do, which is deal with their patients. I'd give an example, but I ran out of time. Sorry.
Mr. Richardson?
Doctors are in a system, they're family doctors, it's like a production line. So we ought to consider paying them more. Oops. We ought to consider maybe working with the federal, the new MP that'll be elected to get more immigrants that are doctors recognized so that they can pursue their practice here. And these are some of the practical things. Also, nurse practitioners. We need to give much more responsibility to nurse practitioners and take some of these responsibilities off the doctors.
Thank you. A question from the floor, and this was addressed to all candidates. We'll begin with Mr. Greenwood. What would you propose for improving transportation for people with disabilities? And again, transportation, as we know, handled at the regional, district, and municipal level, but what role as an MLA and can the province play in supporting and improving transportation with people with disabilities?
First and foremost, you got to find out what the need is, or how much of the need is. Once you figure that out, you can push forward with regional district and getting like the handy darts and whatever's for that section. Another part is opening up to rideshare. We haven't had rideshare for I don't know how long, and we're way past due. And that's got to be available as well, and that could help out the communities. That'll help out the cities. That'll help out all British Columbia.
Mr. Harris?
I think there's a need for more transit options in Nanaimo, not just more availability on the routes that we have, but expanded routes to connect more people in our community. Nanaimo's a dislocated town in a lot of ways, and we need to make sure we connect those people. Ride sharing is absolutely something that needs to come to the table quickly. We need Lyft, we need Uber, and that would allow more people flexibility that's affordable, on demand, on time to move people around our community, within our community. And also, we should be championing the fast ferry, which everybody seems to be on board with, which would allow interconnectivity to Vancouver so that we don't have to bring cars and have the long transit out to Horseshoe Bay or Tsawwassen.
Ms. Malcolmson?
People with disabilities seeking better transportation options were harmed absolutely by the mean-spirited cut by the previous government to remove the bus pass for people with disabilities on transit. It was a shame, and it's been restored. It's been restored, and I was talking to Crystal this week, who said, I'm now able to live in Nanaimo because of the restoration of the bus pass and also the $100 a month more that she gets added to disability. It's about time that we restored some just common decency to the people that are having extra hard work living life with disabilities, and that's just one more example of how much more we have to do as a new government.
Thank you. Ms. Ney?
Yeah, our public transportation system is, I would give it like an F probably if I was a teacher. But what we really need is to look at the services and the needs of our communities so that we can address them, and linking our ferries, our seaports, our airports, our services and schools more efficiently, and so they are more reliable and convenient for people to be using, especially the disabled. And as we move forward looking at smart city concepts in terms of how we create the infrastructure of our city so we can walk and use our bike more often, which of course creates pathways for the disabled as well. Thank you.
Mr. Richardson?
The problem with Handy Dart as it is now, you have to book in advance. And it should be, as in Vancouver, you could just get on. You have a special pass in Vancouver, which we should adopt here, where you can just get on a Handy Dart. You don't have to book in advance. So that's the thing. Also, our party is for a light rail transit system for the Central Island as well as South. And that would solve a lot of our problems. It's more of a medium-term solution, but it's the right way to go, a light rail transit connecting all of the communities up here on the island.
Mr. Walker?
Yeah, we need to get on with the ride-sharing program. The Liberals had years to bring that in, drop the ball. The NDP is vacillating on it right now. This is something that should be done immediately. This is a model that's working elsewhere, all over the world. There's millions of drivers, there's millions of people using the system. You know, they say that ICBC needs time to study it. You know, if ICBC was a real insurance company, they'd know right now. They don't need, you know, really. So it's time to get going on this. Taxis are really expensive in Nanaimo, and you know, our public transit is empty a lot of the time. So where do you go with that?
You.
What's that?
You've used all four.
All out?
Yes.
Can I get some bonus ones?
I'm afraid not, sorry.
All right.
I've heard several candidates mention the fast ferry throughout the campaign and also tonight, the concept of a passenger ferry connecting downtown Vancouver and downtown Nanaimo. And we'll address this to the entire group, and we'll begin with Mr. Harris. It's a private venture, and it's currently being worked out between a private entity and municipal governments, the Port of Vancouver, and local First Nations. So what role specifically, is it funding, is it approvals, what role specifically does the province and a local MLA play in getting that service happening to make it a reality, which hasn't come to fruition for many, many years?
First of all, we need strong advocacy that can work with all levels of government, civic, provincial, and federal. The thing that's holding back the current proposal from Island Ferries is funding, and it's provincial and federal funding that would be required. BC Ferries has been challenged to deliver a fast foot passenger ferry, and they've said that it would compete with their service and conflict with their mandate. But I feel strongly that Vancouver Islanders deserve to have fast connectivity to downtown Vancouver, and I think that this is something that I would support, there being federal and provincial funding to support this operation to get into service.
Ms. Malcolmson?
Connectivity between Vancouver and Nanaimo's harbors would be good for workers, good for Nanaimo. I haven't heard anybody say that it isn't a project that they support. I've advocated for it since early 2015, and every year as a member of parliament. All the approvals are now in place on both sides. All that is standing in the way is funding. And that is something that Transport Minister Claire Trevena with the NDP has prioritized. That's something that the previous government refused to do. And so we've got the best chance we've ever had right now under the NDP of advancing it as a federal infrastructure priority. We're the closest we are to getting it done. BC Ferries says they will not compete. They're not in the market, so that is not a barrier.
Ms. Ney?
Well, I personally have some concerns with this venture going forward, and the one is who's paying for this. I believe there are priorities that we have for our province and our community that are more important than a ferry when we already have a passenger ferry going to Vancouver. I'm also concerned with the environmental impact on the ecosystem along the Gabriola shoreline, which has happened before with the other ferry, and that the fact that we have a 35% poverty rate here in Nanaimo. So I'm wondering how many of us will be using that ferry and if it will be successful. I don't want our public dollars invested in that. Thank you.
Mr. Richardson?
Well, we certainly don't want another NDP fast ferries fiasco, but having looked at this proposition of a passenger-only ferry as an economist and transportation expert, I think it is feasible. I would agree that we need funding from both provincial and federal levels. I was a federal member of parliament. And as your MLA, again, in this situation coming up, I could demand in the next budget that there be some funding for it. The other parties, it's the same old, but I'd be in that balance of power position if you do me the honor of putting me there.
Mr. Walker?
So the two previous attempts at this have failed for a variety of reasons. I'm hesitant to suggest a whole bunch more government money, i.e. taxpayers' money put into this venture. I'd rather see more private money put into it, and make the conditions better for the operator, as it lower taxes and a better access to the ports on either side.
Mr. Greenwood?
this. Some of the issues well, we've covered tonight, and I think they need to be reiterated here. We need to join up with the other provinces, Ontario, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, New Brunswick, and opt out of this carbon tax. We need to deal with ICBC. We need to get ride sharing going. The way that they've handled the marijuana legalization is really quite ridiculous. So we've got classes of marijuana now. We've got government-approved marijuana, and that's legal. And then we've got other marijuana that's not legal. And it's basically going to drive everything back into the black market again, or a lot of it into the black market. We had almost a free market going there for a while, and a lot of little local companies and producers. So there you go.
Mr. Richardson?
You have a unique opportunity next Wednesday to do something really positive for Nanaimo and for Vancouver Island and for BC. If you elect me, I will hold the balance of power for the next 3 years. And I will demand in the budget a whole lot of things that are in my platform, plus others that have been mentioned by some of these other candidates. If you vote for the others, it's the same old thing. But if you vote for me, there will be something different. I will get action. I'm proven, both in politics and business, to get action. And I'd like to be your advocate, your champion, but it's all up to you. I need your vote. I need your vote on Wednesday, the 30th of January. You'll get out and vote. You'll see something different. You'll see something positive. We'll be 100 times better off. Let's make history together.
Thank you. Ms. Ney?
We could be leaders in a clean economy by investing in science, innovation, and technology. We could rebuild our downtown core with small and mid-sized businesses, creating a thriving community with affordable housing and 21st century transportation solutions. My father taught me the importance of the economy and how it influences a thriving community. We are in a pivotal time here right now, and finally, our voice can be heard. And only I can bring a strong voice, a true voice. I will not be a backbencher. And only I, a BC Green, can offer stability and accountability and be your voice for change. I invite you to be a part of that future by voting for me, Michele Ney, on Election Day, January 30th. Thank you.
Thank you to everybody that's come and to our hosts. We are indeed in the most important by-election of our lives. On one hand, we have the BC Liberals' record of cutting services in Nanaimo and hurting people here. The ICU is the perfect example. 2013, the previous government could have invested in the ICU, refused to act. On the other hand, we have a government that just in a year and a half has been able to achieve so much for this community. More paramedics, more teachers, more affordable housing. So let's not go backwards. Let's not cancel MSP fees. Let's make sure we take measures to keep housing affordable. Let's make sure we build schools and hire teachers for our kids. Let's make sure we deliver on climate action. Let's keep moving forward. Let's work together and to build a better Nanaimo.
Thank you. Mr. Harris?
Thank you, everybody, for joining us here tonight. I didn't ever think I'd become a politician, but when this opportunity presented itself to really raise Nanaimo's profile and deliver a message that's aspirational, thinking towards the future to solve the complex challenges of Vancouver Island north of the Malahat, I felt like I was the right person to do it. A person that was born in Nanaimo, raised here, and is deeply passionate about the future of this great place for my children and generations to come. But we need to be thinking about the fact that we are growing and our population is aging, and we need institutional investments in our hospital, in our university, in our port, because together those pillars of our community will create direct jobs and spin-off jobs that will enhance and diversify our economy, strengthening Nanaimo forever. And I will go to Victoria and fight for you. Whether or not I'm elected, I promise you that I will always fight for what's right for Nanaimo, and I'll always be here in Nanaimo.
Mr. Greenwood?
I'd like to thank everyone for coming out today and listening to what everyone had to present. I'd like to talk about the past few decades and what that's resulted in. What that's resulted in is higher prices at the pump, higher prices for heating your home, higher costs of your food. Scrapping the carbon tax will bring instant relief to the gas pumps, instant relief on your utility bills, and lower food costs. Reforming ICBC will lower your premiums and give a more affordable car insurance for you as well. We can bring that to you, and we are yesterday's, today's, and tomorrow's BC Conservatives, and I am a Justin you can trust in.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming tonight. I'd also like to thank our fantastic sponsors and the Nanaimo Chamber of Commerce for putting this event on. Please remember, while all of you are voting, make sure you grab your friends, your loved ones, get them to vote as well. Advance polls are open until Sunday. General voting day is next Wednesday. My name is Dominic Abassi from Nanaimo's undisputed news leader, NanaiMoNewsNow.com. Thank you.
You know, you don't get change unless you step it up. So thank you guys for stepping it up.
No, thank you.
Dr. Phil.
Well, you're clapping for... That's right. Thanks for watching my stuff. Well, I was cruising.
I would like to say that I knew it was there. I was busy to walk maybe I was even speaking to watch.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the live stream from VITVca.